But my kind of magnum opus, or is it magnus opus?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm black. I don't know Latin terms. So I'd say their magnum opus or magnus opus is this book called Yella, Patsy's Boys, which has a current. It's probably coming out in 2010, very likely through Picador Press. It's basically traces a. I got the idea for the story from looking at something on the Discovery Channel about people using DNA, mitochondrial DNA, to trace ancestry and solve crimes, and they've traced it back to the first humans who supposedly migrated out of Africa, and I know that's not a good subject in TigerHawk and some of your readings.
It's a fine subject.
Right, okay.
We've all read Guns, Germs, and
Okay, well, who migrated out of Africa about 100,000 years ago, and then were subsequently almost destroyed by some mega volcano that they traced a choke point in the DNA to about the date that this volcano went off somewhere in Indonesia. So they started from that. They actually developed these ways of tracing family migrations, and I saw this BBC special about people, Black Britons in England wanted to trace their ancestry to the Caribbean or Africa. One of the funnier stories was a guy who was whose parents were both black militants in Manchester, and he was a very militant, very liberal person. They traced his ancestry back to a tribe in North Africa that actually enslaved other black people. So that was a very interesting homecoming for him. But I decided to try to develop that story into a Afro-Caribbean girl who's in college in England who wants to trace her ancestry back. And to her surprise, she finds out that some members of her family actually were from the United States. And she's like, well, how is that possible? And basically the story comes back to around 1812, 1814, that time frame, when her ancestors were actually slaves in Maryland that had escaped to help the British fight the War of 1812, and one part of that family was actually resettled in Trinidad, where her family eventually, from where she came, and she never knew any of this. The interesting part of that story is that based on another story that I found, which may or may not have something to do with the family of one of the husband of one of the Kennedys in Maryland, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend. I won't get sued for this.
I don't know.
Well, it's true. Well, she'd have to,
public.
Yeah, that's right. She's a
probably judgment proof.
That's true. And there's no actual malice there. She'd have to show reckless disregard. But there was a family, the Townsend family, which apparently might have had a dual racial background, where in my story, basically, this slave had married a Chesapeake Bay, the equivalent of the Bill Gates of back then, and they had two children. One was very, very light-skinned. One was probably about my complexion or a little darker.
Wait. You know what this is awfully close to?
What's that?
The long-held belief that Warren Harding passed.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, Barack Obama's not the first African-American president.
It's Warren Harding. Well, I mean, his middle name was Gamaliel.
I don't know why.
And there are white people with middle names like Gamaliel.
I don't know why the Republicans have never claimed credit for that.
Well, he wasn't a very good president.
Well, that's a good point.
He was probably one of the more corrupt ones, too.
We're running. Why don't we finish this and we'll do a part 2?
Okay.